Well, good morning, and what a spectacular day we have down in Dorset with this amazing clear sky, beautiful sunshine, and it is a really crisp cold day, and it's a great day for a walk. So today, were there enough snow and ice around, I could glide around this route. I could run the way, except my ankle won't accept that, and I'm definitely walking alone because I don't want any hangers on. So there's a few clues in there as to where I might be going, and if you know Dorset you might be able to work it out. So I'm going to leave you to ponder on those things while I get walking, because it's quite chilly. It's below freezing at the moment, so I want to get walking. So I hope you're going to join me. It promises to be an amazing walk on an amazing day and lots of interesting things to see along the way. So I will catch up with you in a minute and tell you more, but ponder on my cryptic clues. That needed extreme caution, that one, because that is a very slippery stile. Anyway, we're over it, and safely. So, did you work out where I am from my cryptic clues? I will tell you. Oh, hold on, I've got to try and get over another slippery stile. I'll come back to you in just a second. Another obstacle surmounted, and the views are already opening up. So, back to the clues. What did I say? I could run the way. Well, that's runway. Don't want any hangers on. Well, where do you find hangers? Well, those two can only mean I'm heading for an airfield. Now that doesn't narrow it down very much, because Dorset has a lot of airfields. But the third clue was, if it were enough snow and ice around, I could glide around. So what airfield in Dorset is connected with gliders? Well, it is, of course, Tarrant Rushton. And that's where I'm heading. I'm heading for Tarrant Rushton Airfield at the moment. I've started near Tarrant Rushton village, and obviously I'll be finishing coming through the village as well. And at the moment I'm just climbing up onto the plateau where Tarrant Rushton Airfield is situated. So I thought I would do this one. Well, I was hoping we'd get more snow. We did actually have snow yesterday, and we also had a lot of rain as well, but I was kind of hoping that the snow would settle and that I'd get a nice snowy walk, especially as we're climbing up onto higher ground. But there's not much around. A few splashes still here and there, but it didn't really settle that much in South Dorset. Anyway, that's partly why I've headed this way, partly because I know some of the paths will be like this one, hard, tarmacy, so because there's going to be an awful lot of mud around. So that's another reason, but also because it's a fascinating and interesting area which I wanted to film. So on this route I'm going to be walking around probably 3/4 of the airfield, because there's a public footpath that goes round the outskirts of it. I'm going to do part of it on the way out. I'm then going to leave the airfield and head across to a lovely little hamlet, which, if you've been following me, you will have heard me mention this place before. It's a place called Hemsworth. Lovely little hamlet that I always enjoy walking through. So I'm going to head across there, walk through there at Hamlet, and then rejoin the airfield again to do the second part of the airfield before dropping down into Tarrant Rushton village, which has a fascinating church which I want to look at and film in. After that, I'm not sure. I'm holding it loosely. I think that if I head straight back to the car would be about an 8-mile loop. I could add another mile or two onto that because there's an extra bit I could take in, but it will depend on what the conditions are, because as I say, we've had a lot of rain and it could be extremely muddy and potentially impassable. I'm not sure. Anyway, we will see how we go. So we've now reached Tarrant Rushton Airfield, which sits on the plateau just above the village of Tarrant Rushton, and this is the airfield. And we are going to be heading along this road here, which is part of the taxiing road that runs around the perimeter of the airfield, and that's still in place. So unfortunately I'm walking right into the bright sun again, so I hope that doesn't spoil the video. And you will notice that there's a lot of farm equipment around, and that is because it is now a farm. The whole airfield is a farm now. So going back into the past, this whole area was originally owned by Critchell Estates. Now Critchell House is a manor house which is not far from Witchhampton, probably 3 or 4 miles as the crow flies from where I am. They sold this part of their estate in 1938 and it was bought by the Harding family. 4 years later, this plateau and all the airfield land was requisitioned by the Royal Air Force and the construction of this airfield started. So in 1942 the construction of the airfield started, intended originally for a 38 wing transport command of the RAF, but before the construction had been completed, the whole thing was handed to glider operations, and that's what the airfield is most known for. It is for the operation of gliders, training of bomber pilots and glider pilots, and a base for them, and somewhere they can take off and fly across to the continent, where the gliders would be released and drop down, often behind enemy lines, whilst the bomber flew back. It had 3 runways. The main runway, in fact, is still visible. We're coming up to that. I'm still, obviously at the moment, I'm still on the perimeter road, the taxiing road. But the main runway, most of the airfield obviously was broken up eventually. I'll tell you more about that in due course, but it was broken up and restored to farmland again. But the parts there, I mean the perimeter taxiing road remains, the main runway remains, or at least part of it, I think, because I suspect it would have been a lot wider than it is. So yeah, sorry about the shadow, but this is the main runway, which goes right down the middle of the airfield. And if you go back to the 1940s and beyond, as I'll tell you later, there would have been Halifax bombers going up from here, towing gliders down that runway. So there were 2 other runways. I don't think there's any sign of those now, but they basically crisscrossed the plateau at the top of the airfield. Now we're going to detour away from the airfield at the moment. The taxiing road continues down there. We will pick that up later and I will tell you more about the history of this place, but it's very open, ideal situation, isn't it, for an airfield. And aside from the main runway, there are a lot of the hangars that are still here and ancillary buildings, although they've been recommissioned, if you like, for farm buildings now. So we'll come back to this. That's a bit of an insight into it, but it is a place that's got a massive part in history and in our wartime, particularly wartime exploits and beyond that. But we'll come back to that because we'll be returning to here once I've had my little detour. So this is the part of the walk that I wasn't absolutely sure about, because we're about to leave the airfield and this nice solid path I'm walking on and head out cross country, which is lovely but potentially muddy. That's a nice seat for lunch. What a shame it's all snowy. That one looks quite bad. Can't go that way anyway, it's private. We're actually going this way. So you might glean from my opening of this video that I like cryptic clues. In fact, one of the things I do is I do a lot of cryptic crosswords. I like to not only keep my body healthy by getting out as much as possible, but I also like to keep my mind healthy and fit and one of the ways I do that, aside from trying to remember facts and about things while I'm out filming, which I have trouble with, one of the things I do is that I do a lot of cryptic crosswords. And yeah, it's good as you get older, particularly I think it's good to do things like that and to actually focus on trying to do things which will keep your brain fit as well as your body. Anyway, did you get the answer? That's the question to the cryptic clues. I imagine it's probably fairly obvious to anybody who knows Dorset. Anyway, we've left the airfield now. And we're just making our way kind of towards Hemsworth, which is some distance away. And we'll do a little circuit round the village, or hamlet actually. And there's a familiar sight over there to anybody who watches any of my videos. In the distance on the hilltop is Badbury Rings. Let's test this out. Shows how cold it is. Still frozen solid. And I'm actually quite surprised at how clear the tracks are. And one of the benefits, I suppose, with these tracks is that they are well compacted farm tracks. But so I can see, is that a pheasant or something? I kind of expected a lot more mud. The puddles are still frozen. The ground is semi-frozen, I would say, but still quite soft. But so far, so good. Now, I probably shouldn't have said that. I'll probably come across a quagmire in a minute. It's a glorious day. Absolutely amazing to be out again. And I'm really enjoying this walk today. Just been chatting to a local guy who keeps bees in the woodlands back there. He's out walking his dog, and oh, a bit slippery here, and checking on his beehives. It's always one of the pleasures, I think, when you're out walking like this, bumping into kind of locals and stopping to chat about the area and that sort of thing, especially up here, and it's got a history. We see quite a few light aircraft buzzing around today. We're not a million miles away from Compton Abbas Airfield, so I'm guessing that's where they're coming from. That's another favourite airfield, except that one's still operational, of course. One good thing today, I have to say, is there's not a lot of wind at all, because that makes a big difference when you're filming. Well, from two avenues really, two angles, makes a difference to the sound, because the wind messes with the microphone, but also messes with your hands, because the wind chill factor means you wind up with freezing cold hands and you're trying to operate the camera. So that's a positive. And it's still a glorious day. Just look at this sky. That's amazing. And over that way is King Down, where we've been before. Adbury Rings over that way. And it's a very still and quiet. The only disturbance I hear is guns going off. So I'm not sure where that is. It could be a pheasant shoot going on somewhere on one of the local farms. Alternatively, Blandford Camp is not too far away, so it could be army firing. It sounds like shotguns, to be truthful. We can see Hemsworth now. This is Hemsworth, the building's over here. That's where we're going. Although we're going to carry on down this track and do a circuit before we get over there. this amazes me actually, I have to say. This farm, which operates out of Hemsworth as far as I know, we're going to walk past the farmhouse. In fact, I think it was a farmhouse I photographed just now. Always seems to be well set up. I mean, this is quite a smart looking cattle trough, and most times when you walk you're kind of going past old tin bars that are falling to pieces for cattle troughs, but here they seem to be quite posh ones. Can I say posh ones? Can you have a posh cattle trough? I think you can. Not only that, but they're on a base as well, so no great big muddy patches around the cattle trough. They obviously look after their cows and consider them, they don't want to get mud all over them. But it does seem to be well looked after here, I have to say, even laying down gravel and so on. Well, and what I'm walking on, the kind of gravel there, paths. So I'm taking a little detour off the route for a minute because it is coming up to 1 o'clock and I'm thinking about lunch. Back to my New Year's resolution to eat at a sensible time when I'm out walking, and I happen to know that there's a log down here that I've sat on before for lunch, so I'm hoping it'll be relatively okay to sit on today, but who knows. And this is a bit muddier now here, mainly because it's a bridle way. So I've got to my log, but it's not great that side, but there's a little patch there that's been in the sun, so I think that'll do. I can lean myself on that and enjoy a bit of sunbathing. Cheers. Hot Bovril, just what the doctor ordered. That is good. I seem to have a little robin for company as well. Well, thanks Log for your support. And thank you Robin for your company. Well, I've got walking to do. And I'm heading off up another farm track into Hemsworth, which is at the top of this slope. And so we've reached Hemsworth. There's a few interesting things here, apart from the fact that I just like the village, or hamlet I should say. There's some listed buildings here, barns that date back to the 18th century, and the one I love is the granary, the little granary building there, square building on saddle stones, dates back to the 18th century. There's some nice old barns here, but I particularly like that building. It's neat, and I think granaries were often built up on saddle stones to keep them off the ground. I think it was to keep the rats out, wasn't it? So this is the other side of the building we saw just now, which I think is the farmhouse. I always think it looks like a manor house, but I think it's mainly because of the chimneys. It's got those kind of grand chimneys. Maybe it is a manor house. Could be Hemsworth Manor. There's not an awful lot at Hemsworth. It's funny really. I don't know what it is I like about it. It kind of intrigues me, I suppose. All there is really is the farmhouse, which looks quite grand, almost like a manor house, and a few cottages. But something intrigues me about it. Oh, that's well frozen there still. Awesome. Still a beautiful light everywhere. I remember once I was coming through here and a hunt went by. They'd obviously come across the airfield and were coming back through here. Whether it was a true hunt. Oh, wow, there's loads of birds up there, washing in the puddles. Anyway, I remember taking photographs of it. Well, can't say these puddles look that clean, so I don't think I'd want a bath in there. I guess the bird doesn't mind. Yeah, shame. By the time I got the other camera out, a lot of them had taken off. But I did get one or two bathing. So we're back on Tarrant Rushton Airfield again, just on the approach road at the moment. We'll be joining the taxiing road shortly. I just noticed that we're crossing a Roman road, which I suppose would be predictable because Badbury Rings is right across there on the horizon. So it comes from there, heads off over there, but not a lot of evidence remaining. Obviously farmed out, I guess. So yes, back to Tarrant Rushton Airfield. Started in 1942, finished 9 months later, 1943, which is when operations with the glider unit commenced. And it operated for around 4 years, during which time glider pilots and bomber pilots were trained, and it played a big part in the D-Day landings, a major part in fact. So you can picture the scene. Very late in the day on the 5th of June 1944, 6 bombers take off from this little airfield, towing 6 gliders, and they are taking the troops across to Caen, releasing them so that they glide silently to the ground, and their goal is to seize a vital bridge which became known as Pegasus Bridge. They arrived early in the morning on the 6th of June. Later that day, another 26 bombers take off, each towing a glider. Later that day again, I think it was around 32 bombers took off, each towing a glider. And there were 2 types of gliders. There was the Horsa glider, which carried troops, but there was also a glider called a Hamilcar glider, which carried tanks, I believe. So it was a mix of gliders being towed. They flew low, I think as low as 60 feet, I believe, to stay below the radar, release the gliders, which land silently, hopefully smoothly. Sometimes I'm not sure that was the case. I did read one account where I think the pilot went through the windscreen. It was a bumpy landing, but it was a major part of the effort to get people behind enemy lines. Interestingly, it wasn't the only thing. I mean, there was a major part in the D-Day landings, but it wasn't actually the only thing they did. They also dropped numerous agents and spies behind enemy lines and other things. In fact, I believe it actually ran 2,280 top secret missions into occupied Europe. So it was heavily involved. But obviously after the war, this airfield closed, or closed to military use, and in fact it was taken over by Flight Refueling, a company that well, it's in the name, isn't it? A company that deals with refueling fighter jets while they're in flight to enable them to travel further. So they were in situ and based here at this airfield till, I think it was till 1980, when I believe they moved to Bournemouth Airport, and this airfield was decommissioned. The runways were essentially broken up, turned into rubble, which was actually used in the creation of some of the roads around here, and it was turned back to farmland, which is what it is now. But the relics that are still here are these taxiing roads, the remnants of the main runway. The other 2 runways have gone, and some aircraft hangars which have been repurposed as barns and industrial units, that sort of thing, for farming purposes. And I'm not sure what happened after that. I believe it reverted again to the Harding family, because it was actually put on the market in 2023, and the guy I was chatting to earlier The beekeeper guy said the Hardings apparently had died, so it went on the market, and you could have bought this for the minor sum of, well, I think it was on the market at £13.8 million, and that included obviously the land, buildings and farmhouse and various other things, I think. So it's quite a substantial parcel of property, and so it's been taken over now. In fact, I think it's 3 farms. He seemed to think it was 3 farms now. I'm just going to take a short detour down here, because there's a memorial. They've recently, I think recently, had a 80th anniversary memorial service. Either had it or going to, I don't remember which. So at one time this was a hangar housing aircraft, bombers and gliders. But this part here goes by the name of Windy Corner. And it does get windy, I have to say. I know this well because the road goes through here, and it's on one of my regular cycle routes. Oh, in fact, you get an aerial view of the runways there, main runway and the 2 others, and also, if you can see that, if I'm close enough, you can see how the bombers pulled the gliders. So it must have been pretty scary, I would have thought. Imagine sitting in a glider, and they're made of wood, they're just wooden gliders. You're going to be towed across on a bomber, across the channel. You're going to be released to drop down below enemy lines, and obviously gliders can't take off again, so there is no way of getting out. You are dropped below enemy lines and that's it. You have to fight your way out. That must have been scary. Just the thought is, I don't know, how did people do it in those days, knowing they may never come back again? Well, of course, a lot of them didn't come back, did they? We lost a lot of bombers and men. The gliders, I presume, we lost anyway. They were disposable, kind of. But I always find as I walk around these places, I mean, it's so open and spacious up here, and there's lots of people walking dogs and so on. And you've got this just flatness all around. But I'm walking along a road now that, what, 80 years ago, bombers were taxiing along, and at one time there were 3,000 people working on this airfield. That's an awful lot of people. And I just find that you kind of walk these places and you can't help but imagine the past. What was it like? It's just hard to imagine. I think this would have been an absolute buzz, a hive of activity. and all because of countries' greed for power or whatever. And it's just, I don't know, it's just unbelievable waste, isn't it? Everything about war is an unbelievable waste, especially the price paid in terms of human lives. But in total contrast to that, it's now a place of peace. Apart from the wind, which has got up a bit over this side, it's a place of peace. I can hear a little bit of traffic noise, but apart from that, it's just birds. And it's a lovely, open, spacious place to come for a walk. And we've got good paths to walk on. Now here's another thought that's just come to me. How in the world did they know where to land? How did they know where to release the glider so that it would glide down in the right place when they had no modern navigation devices? I don't think there was anything like sat-nav or anything in those days. And they flew out, well, the first lot went out just before midnight on the 5th, so they'd have been going in the dark. How do you do that in those days? I don't know. Amazing achievement, has to be said. Anyway, we're coming up to the main runway again, but this time the other end. So we've almost done our circuit of Tarrant Rushton Airfield. So that's it. We're right at the other end, which I think, I'm not sure how long this is. Did I read it was a mile long? Can't remember. But we were at the other end of this earlier on. So you can picture now, were you a bomber pilot or a glider pilot, you'd be sitting here ready to take off. What a thought. So we are about to leave the airfield now and drop back down into the village of Tarrant Rushton, and that's got some interesting things too. So interestingly, the wind has dropped. Well, at least not on this side, so it's that's interesting, because over there where Windy Corner was, that literally is a windy corner, because there's no wind here at all, and I'm still on the airfield. How strange. Bit of flooding. Good job I can get round it. Well, we are coming up to the point where we're dropping down off of the plateau now. So we'll have a last look at Tarrant Rushton Airfield in this absolutely wonderful late afternoon light. That is absolutely beautiful. Oh, there's me. That's glorious. We've got to make our way down now. And we are going to run out of light as usual. This takes me so long because I find so many things to film and photograph along the way and look at that I get delayed. Never mind. Tarrant Rushton, here we come. Right, I am dropping down off of the hill now. You can see the state of this road. The dead end road that just goes up to the airfield. But this looks like it could be slippery underfoot, so I'm going to have to go a bit gingerly down here. This is obviously a rookery. The light is spectacular. Absolutely amazing evening light. I love it. So we're now in Tarrant Rushton village, which has some lovely old cottages. But we're just detouring. This is not my way back to the car. I'm detouring because I want to look in the church down here. Hopefully it's open. More cottages. Oh, a fair bit of snow down here as well. Not thawed out. It's probably not had any sun. So this is the Church of St Mary's, Tarrant Rushton. And it has a few interesting things about it. The original church dates from 1150 AD, so it's Norman. But one interesting thing about it is its shape. It's in the shape of a cross, but it's in the shape of a Greek cross, which means that all four arms are the same length, like a plus sign. In fact, it'll have to be a quick look, I think, because we're going to lose the lights. So that's a little squat Norman tower. And one of the interesting things it's got is, in fact, round the other side. We'll go round there first, I think. And it is up here. And it may look like just a window into the interior, but it is actually a leper's window. There was a leper colony nearby, and a lot of churches had these leper windows because they were outcasts. It was thought to be highly contagious and that they were banished to be locked away on their own, and so for them, in order to take part in the service, they would have leper windows that they could stand and watch through the window without actually mixing with anybody. And one of the interesting things about it is the marks in the wall. Said to have been made by the lepers leaning on the wall with their hands either side and kind of wearing the wall away. Anyway, let's move on because we'll run out of time. A fair bit of snow this side of the hill. I don't know how much filming I can do inside because it's going to be quite dark, I think. Anyway, let's see. Oh, assuming it's open, of course. It is. Yes, as I thought, it is dark. This part's probably the lightest part. So the little niche is a piscina, which is for the washing of the holy vessels, and that stands beside the altar. It also has these squints, or hagioscopes, they're also called, which are like mini windows. I don't know if that's going to come out very well. I can't put the lights on because I don't know where the switches are. But the idea was that you would be able to see through those to see the altar if you happen to be not in the main part of the church. Sorry, it's very dark in here. So the other thing it's got is, ooh, got my torch out. It's got these acoustic jars. There's two of them up there, and the theory was, and they date back to Greek times, and the theory was that they would amplify the sound around the church. And they were used a lot in Greek times, and they were used in also some old English churches. It's a kind of theory that I think has been debated and disagreed with by many people who say that's not possible. I suppose it's vaguely possible that they might absorb a certain wavelength of sound and resonate a bit, which might help acoustics. But there's a lot of debate around it, and it's generally kind of thought that they actually don't make a lot of difference. But that's an interesting feature of this church. You can see it a little bit better with the torch on, but it's not very bright, unfortunately. And the other interesting thing is above this door, we've got a man with a book on the left. In the middle we've got an Agnus Dei, I think they call it, which is a sheep or lamb with a, well, I think it's a snake in its mouth, but some say it's a scroll. I think it's probably a snake. And on the right, a man holding up a scroll, neatly carved in the lintel, and that is said to represent the Holy Trinity. And I'm going to light it by torchlight, because if I take that away, you can't see a thing. Right, so we are back outside now. It's a shame it's so dark in there, but hopefully you got a flavour for the church. It was a quick whistle-stop tour. The sky is fading on us, so we need to head on back. So clearly I haven't got time to do the extra loop I was going to do, so we're going to head back through the village. This road is quite lethal. You could easily slip on that. As you can see, it's an idyllic little village in an idyllic spot. It's quite a narrow, longish, narrow village. And obviously on the left you've got the hill that climbs up to Tarrant Rushton Airfield. And on the right you just got farmland really, and the Tarrant Valley. The Tarrant is a river, River Tarrant, that runs down through the Tarrant Valley, and as is normal, there's various Tarrant villages all the way down its length. And I know I've filmed some of those already. I think this is the first time I've filmed Tarrant Rushton. And I have to say, I'm kind of glad the light has gone really, and I'm not being tempted to do the additional loop that I was thinking of doing, because I'm actually limping now, because this cold damp weather today is making the ankle really bad. So I'm glad I'm not, because I would be tempted, I know I would, if I had the light. And far better that, what was they say, discretion is the better part of valour, and that is undoubtedly true on this occasion. Some lovely cottages here, really nice. So we've reached the end of the village. The cottage which I'm just filmed is the one that we filmed this morning when I started out. and I'm just got a short walk down the road and across the river in order to get back to the car. So I'm going to sign the video off here while I've still got enough light, because it's fading fast. What an awesome day. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been cold but bright and sunny. There's been a lot of stuff to look at and talk about. It's just been amazing, I think, and I've really enjoyed it. It's good to be out. Shame we didn't get the snow, but yeah, you can't have everything, can you? Anyway, so thanks again for coming with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've loved it as always, and I will be out again very soon. But for now, this is me, the Dorset Rambler, saying until next time. Cheers. Last of the Bovril. Just what I need to warm me up a little bit at the end of the walk.